Good morning, YouTube. It is 10 o'clock on the 22nd of April 2025. In about 10 days, the British people go to the polls. We do so we can elect our councillors, our councils, and our mayoral candidates for places like in the area I live in, which is the Liverpool area. We've got the Metro Mayors of Manchester. We've got the Liverpool Metro Mayor of Liverpool, obviously. Birmingham, Bristol, Nottingham, London, all those sort of places. There's also in the constituency of Runcorn and Helsby, which is only about, I'd say, a 30-minute bus drive away from here. There's a by-election going on. If you don't know what happened there for that to happen, the person who was in the seat there was a fellow called Mike Amesbury. And on a night out in Frodsham, in his constituency, he ends up assaulting a constituent. I honestly don't remember what it was that caused it. I think the constituent was getting in his face, was drunk and was getting in his face, but that is no excuse to go assaulting the guy. Mike Amesbury should have known better, but he didn't. I have to admit, I've actually met the guy. I'm originally from Runcorn myself. I can't vote in that constituency because I now live in Liverpool. But, and here's the thing, I would vote in that constituency if I was living there. Who I'd be voting for, I really couldn't tell you. It's not because it's a case of I don't want to tell you. I genuinely don't know. I can't vote Conservative because I'm not a Conservative. I can't vote Lib Dem because their policies are just completely up the wall. I can't vote Green because they're too wishy-washy with everything that they want. They're far too... As much as I love the idea of the environment being protected, that's really all they care about. They don't really care about their fellow human beings, from what I have noticed. This is only from what I have noticed. This is only from what I've seen. I don't know enough about the independent candidate, and I can't vote Labour because they originally said that they weren't prepared to defend the country. They said this back in 2015 when Corbyn came into power. Since then, it's been a stain on them. Me being a former soldier, I can't vote for them. And I'm not sure if I can vote for Reform either. So it depends on who really snags it for me. I think if I was living in Runcorn, I'd probably abstain from this one. I don't know who I can vote for. I really don't. It does bother me that there are people who are still die-hard Labour supporters in Runcorn that think Labour can't do any wrong, and yet the stuff that they've been doing since they got into power, since July 2024, they've locked people up for simply disagreeing with them. They've locked people up for protesting. Here's something you need to understand. When a freely elected government who is elected by the people starts locking up individuals that they don't agree with for whatever reason, it could be literally quite anything. It's a case of they locked up farmers because the farmers were protesting. People have had freedom of speech suddenly go missing. They've been locked up. Any freely elected government that is elected by the people that starts doing this ceases to be a democracy and it becomes a dictatorship. You can't lock people up just because you disagree with them. There are plenty of people in this world that disagree with me and my views on everything. There are occasions I disagree with my wife. But I don't lock these people up because I respect their view. this country has gone from being a world-leading democracy and is now sliding into a European dictatorship. It probably has already got there. It's just a lot of people might not have noticed. Not only are we sliding into a European dictatorship, we're also sliding back into the EU, which was something that 17.4 million of us, myself included, voted to leave. Now here's the interesting thing about me when it came to the Brexit vote. I am actually a Remainer, but I voted leave, and there was an extremely good reason as to why I did this. When David Cameron was going to each of the regions to explain why he wanted us to vote Remain, I noticed something, and this was something that got picked up on when he came to Manchester. He went to every single region and said it was going to be beneficial for that region if we voted Remain, because if that region voted Remain, then everything would go to London. All the benefits would go to London. And throughout this whole thing, that's what he did. He over-focused on London. And if he'd have gone into these regions, into say the Southwest or Wales or the East Midlands or Derbyshire or, I don't know, the Northeast or somewhere like that, and if it had just said, look, this is the benefits your region is going to get if you vote Remain, he probably would have easily walked it. He could have easily won if he'd have done that. But no, he had to focus on London. Over-focus on London. And when he came up to Manchester, I remember seeing this speech, and it's online as well. He actually says that if Manchester votes to Remain, transport links between London and Europe will get stronger. If Manchester and the Greater Northwest votes to Remain, then power can be retained in London. And he went on and on and on and on and on about how it was going to be brilliant for London if Manchester, a northern city, voted Remain. And it took one person in the audience from the Manchester Evening News to point this out to him. He said, you do realise throughout your entire speech, all you have done is continuously talk about how brilliant it's going to be for London if we vote Remain. We in the North vote Remain. And he carries this on. He continues and says, you've actually done this in every single region you've visited. You've not focused on what that region wants, you've focused on what London wants. At least when the Leave Party were going around, they were stating, this is what's going to happen with your region if you vote to leave. And they were honest about it. That was the one thing I started noticing for me to say, no, maybe I don't really want to be a Remainer if that's the case. And the thing that really pushed it into voting leave for me, I'm going to use a rugby league term here because I'm a rugby league fan. The thing that kicked it into touch for me was when, on the day of the election, Keir Starmer, not the election, on the day of the referendum, and not even Keir Starmer for that matter, David Cameron was getting into a car in Downing Street, and he is stopped and questioned by Kay Burley because she shouts over to him, Prime Minister, if Britain votes to leave, will you resign? And he looks her dead in the eye and starts laughing, and it's on camera. And he says, this is about 10 o'clock in the morning that he says this. He says, it's far too early to call because the polls have only just opened, but I'm confident that as London votes, so shall the country. He's basically saying, I don't care what the rest of the country thinks. I've thrown my lot in with London. As long as London votes to Remain, I'm a happy man. Now here's the interesting thing about what he did. Not only did he say that I will implement your decision. Now here's the thing. 17.4 million of us, myself included, voted to leave. What does he do the following day? As soon as the result comes through that Britain has left the EU, that have voted to leave the EU, what's he do? He fucks off. He doesn't want to know. I love my country, I simply can't lead it. Look, you're the one that got us into this mess, get us out of it. You said that you would implement this. So sort it out, please. Don't leave it for some bugger else to do. I mean, you can easily tell if he was in the armed forces, he'd be the sort of person that says, I would ask any of you to do something that I would not ask any of you to do something I haven't done or wouldn't do. And as soon as it comes down to the whole, I need you to take this hill, well, hang on a minute. If you want us to take this hill, why don't you lead us do it? Why don't you lead us to do it? Oh, well, I can't, you see, because I have this, whatever needs to be doing. And then he'd fuck off again. He's that kind of person. He has no idea of how the real world works because he's from one of those Eton, Cambridge, Oxford boys. I really have no time for. But still, that's just something I've noticed. In about 10 days, this country goes to the polls, and we need to be ready. I have a feeling that the Reform Party is going to swipe quite a few of these councils, and when it does, things are going to happen. Labour's not going to like it, and they'll do everything they can to say that everyone who voted for Reform or whoever else that isn't Labour is far right, because they will often do this. They'll scream, they'll kick, they'll shout. Everything that they don't like is far right. They clearly don't like the fact that I'm against them in a differing view kind of way, so therefore I'm far right. You know, they probably don't like this cup because it's not a Labour cup. Okay, it's red, but it's a China mug, and we got it from China because it's where my wife is from. But yeah, they'll probably say that was far right. You know, they'll most likely say that, I don't know, a soft drink, say Fanta or Coca-Cola or, I don't know, Mountain Dew or something, is far right, because heaven forbid that it should not be a red label. Anyway, I'm getting off track and I'm getting a little bit wound up here, so I'm going to finish. All I've got to say is that we're going to go to the polls in a couple of days, in about 10 days, and we'll see what happens there. Until next time, take care of yourself, guys.